Welcome to Crimson Guitars, welcome to my home studio, and welcome to Luthiers Question Time. This is my multifaceted live stream of Luthiers questions, and it takes a lot of time, or something like that. Today's episode is ostensibly about how many tools one actually needs to be a luthier, to make a guitar, potentially to be a professional luthier, making a living out of this thing. And I fully expect most of you to say, hey, all of the tools and more. But I'm sitting here in my studio thinking, do I need that or that? I don't need a lathe, that's almost certain. I don't need that other lathe. How many machine tools do I actually use, for example? My bandsaw, I love my bandsaw. I absolutely need an oscillating spindle sander, and the Triton oscillating spindle belt sander is like a dream machine. Literally the first machine I bought as a guitar builder, the first machine was a spindle sander. And it's just amazing. I use it all the time. But then there's planers and thicknesses and planar thicknesses, and not to talk about the routers and the oscillating spin, the random orbital sanders and angle grinders. How much of all of this is necessary? And I haven't even got to talking about, well, this. Do you need every single chisel? Do you need more than 2 or 3 gouges, for example? How about planes? I mean, you all know that I have a serious issue with hand planes. I love them too much, far too much. I'm hoping, looking at my thing here, I'm just hoping that I actually have audio. Do we have audio? Please tell me we have audio. Everybody's saying, okay, on time for once, Ben. I did have a question that a bunch of people would, there was a comment earlier on, about 10 minutes ago, saying, hey, let's take bets and see if Ben's on time. I'm on time. It's this little bit of software does appear to be. I seem to know what's going on now, which is good. So how are you all? How are you all? Let me know in the live chat, and we'll see how it goes. If you have a question that you desperately want answered, we have chats going through at a fast rate of knots. If you absolutely want me to see it, then please put it through as a super chat. Those things I see. Hey, Real KH, here, SC Guitars, Inky Guitars, Ravencroft Guitars, Jaybird Customs. Jaybird, haven't seen you for a while. We're all in the house. Okay. So yes, actually the very, very first comment here was from Bert Craven, who says, we already know the answer to this. It is all of them. Nelson Rodriguez says, what's up, homie? Peace from California. I'm throwing down the gang signs. I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing. This is from Prime, and I like this very much. He says, she says. I'm not going to presume your sex, actually, come to think of that. There is a very old saying which everyone should know, and it goes like this. It is better to have it and not to need it than needing it and not having it. There you go. You no longer need to go live. All right. Where's the off button? Speaking of off buttons, So at the end of the show, I always say, thank you very much, click subscribe, all that nonsense, like that smash button, etc. And then I push a button here that says cancel. But apparently that stops the whole thing when I'm still in the midstream of saying thank you very much and goodbye. But anyway, yeah, let me know. Nobody told me that until somebody mentioned it last week. Now, that is the thing. What Prime said there, needing a tool, having it, being able to use it, versus needing a tool, not having it, and then going to have to try and find it, that is incredibly problematic, and it's a reason most people who make things, most people who use tools, will have over time a burgeoning workshop full of the things. And it really might be the case that, hey, I haven't used that plane in 2 years, but when you need that particular plane for a particular job, you need it. Now, that being said, I've got here a number 5, and I've got a Lie-Nielsen number 62. There we go. They are roughly the same plane. The 62 is low angle, and the 62 will do everything that the number 5 does. The only reason I've got that number 5 is out of a sense of completeness. I want to have, all of the sort of pre-1900 Stanleys, at least bench planes, period. Thank you very much. I don't need it. I just want it. And I think that's my big problem. Crevel says, there is not too much caffeine, you're just weak. Okay, we're talking to SC Guitars, I think, who's apparently said that there's, he's had too much caffeine already. So here's something quite interesting. Today is Sunday, of course. The streams run on Friday evenings at 5:30 and Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. And today I had all of the caffeine I needed, but I didn't drink enough water. And it turns out that if I don't have, at least a couple of bottles of water as well as everything, I also stop functioning. So I'm a water addict too. I can't believe it. Okay, so let me know in the comments below what you think. Now, when I started building guitars, and this is the real point, and to actually address the subject, when I started building guitars, I did have a few tools. I certainly did. I didn't have ready access to, let me think about this. When I started building guitars professionally and actually started selling them, I had a router, I had a jigsaw, I didn't have a bandsaw. I mean, bandsaws are amazing. And I had a bunch of chisels and gouges, and I did have a number of planes, a number 7, a number 4.5, which I erroneously thought was better than a 4. I think I just had a particularly good 4.5. And a number of things like that, because I had trained as a Baroque instrument maker, and everything was focused on those hand tools. And things like routers were heavily frowned upon. In fact, I didn't know what a router was until I'd been building instruments for nearly 2 years. Literally, had no clue. It was just a sort of thing spoken of in hushed tones. Are you going to use a router to do that? Are you allowed to use a router at West Dean College? They've got a router here. Oh no, somebody brought it in. That sort of thing. So, and yet with those minimal tools, I managed to build guitars. And if you look at the Great Guitar Build-Off, which is currently going on, we have hundreds of budding young YouTubers / guitar builder entrepreneurial people, as well as a number of people who are already doing it full time. And everyone is able to make a guitar. And everybody is, for the most part, succeeding admirably. And everybody is involved, from people who have their, A plane or no planes. I'm looking at you, SC Guitars. No hand planes. And right up to people who have workshops as over-equipped as mine. And I suppose the real answer here is that one can survive without all of the tools. But if you do have them, keep them, I suppose. So let us see what you guys think. Luthier. Hey, Luthier. Can we switch names? Reminds me of Deadpool when he meets Negasonic Teenage Warhead. But anyhow. Luthier is saying that his build is almost done and filmed, but he doesn't have the computer to edit it at the moment, which is a bit of a problem. Jaybird's saying, use a phone. You can edit on phones. I have a full editing suite, non-linear, or had at least, on my phone. So there we go. Tutankhamun, he says, a question here to get Ben warmed up. If you had to make a guitar with just 5 tools, what would those 5 tools be? So this is the thing. If I had to have 5 tools and I had no budget, I would have a CNC machine with programmer, chained to the CNC machine. And a random orbital sander. And that's 2. A hand plane of some sort, probably a low angle block plane. With skill, you can make a low angle block plane do anything, including jointing, if you absolutely have to. And then I would have to have a hammer to hammer the frets in. You should use a soldering iron, but I suppose you could twist the wires around the potentiometers. That would be so ill-advisable. Yeah. It would have to be a fretboard, a fret leveling beam, because while a fret rocker is essential for fret leveling so that you can test it, and a notched straight edge is essential so that you can see what the actual neck itself is doing, with a leveling beam you can at least, because it's long and straight, you can see what the tops of the frets are doing and guess that the neck is straight. You'd need an Allen key, I've already failed. It's impossible. It is utterly impossible. And even without the CNC machine, you would have to limit yourself to maybe 15 or 20 tools. An essential fret leveling and dressing toolkit that we sell at Crimson Guitars is absolutely essential. You can't not do it. That's a crowning file. Hell, I forgot about the crowning file. A crowning file, a leveling beam, a fret rocker, a fret and finishing dressing file is pretty damn essential, and I've lost track of where I am now. Those tools, you need them. You really do need them, and that's half of them. And then you would need, in my opinion, a hand plane, unless you've got some sort of a machine on which you can accurately joint a top and a body and all of that jazz. You have to have a hand router. Here's looking at you, Triton, again. I absolutely love my Tritons. I've been using them for, well, must be way more than a decade now. And in order to have the router, you have to have router bits. In order to have a hand plane, you have to have sharpening tools. These things just, it's inception. It compounds and compounds and compounds, and before you know what you're doing, you got a workshop full of stuff like this. So, anyhow, now, let us, please, throw some questions at me. Let me know what you are thinking. We've got Futone Guitars in saying, good evening, everybody. Today I will be on time. So he's on time. I'm on time. Sharona Conkle says, hey there, all you beautiful people. Ravencroft Guitars is in. Kate Bengert is in. Coolwood Italy is in. Hey, dude. Rob Rabnox. Real KH. We're all here. Paul 23 Fitz, how's it going? Hey y'all, so 5 hours down a Welsh pub getting a nice fill on dirty lamb doner for supper and a couple of hours of me. Life is good. Thank you very much. I think I'd be having a nap after all of that, to be honest. Now, how's it going, Joe Brown? Joe Brown. So Jaybird Custom says, yeah, it's been a busy bit. My son and I got frets in our neck, though. I'm loving the fact that you are building with your progeny. I have a marital... What is the word? A marital moratorium. I am absolutely not allowed to have the children appear on camera, ever, period. And I really regret that, because I think it would be awesome fun to do. Okay, so come on, guys, feed me with questions. Okay, Ravencroft Guitar says, I did my whole great guitar build off without a hand planer, spindle sander, or thicknesser, and with only 2 chisels. I didn't have a bandsaw until the last 10% of it. Lol. I honestly do not know if I would be able to do that. I really don't know if I could, knowing what I know now. Earlier we mentioned needing a tool and not having it is the most frustrating thing in the world, and it is. I think something that trumps even that is needing a tool, knowing you have it, and not being able to find it. And even worse than that is needing a tool, knowing that you could have it, and having experience of it, but still not being able to go and get that tool. And instead you have to spend 2 hours with a 1/4 inch chisel chiseling out a truss rod when, for example, a hand router with a good template or a fence would do that job in less than 2 minutes. That would be the height of frustration to me. Oh my gosh. Okay. We have our first super chat of the day. Thank you very much. Ozirioth. There we go. He says, I see numerous flame wars around glue types, and which is the best for a given job. Could you describe the main wood glue types and their uses, please? Okay. It is the whole thing. You are potentially listening to acoustic guitar builders talking, which is fine. Acoustic guitar builders will often talk about how hide glue is the be-all and end-all, and the same goes for violin makers. And quite frankly, for a lot of things, hide glue is great. That being said, I haven't used it personally in earnest in more than 15 years, let's say. And I'm talking about hide glue. You have a double burner, and you mix the flakes in the water, and you get to the right temperature, and you use it. It's fantastic stuff. However, and the reason to use that is very much about the fact that you can very, very easily reverse course. If you've got an issue with it, you can use a little bit of heat, a little bit of water, maybe a little bit of steam if you really have to, and you can take the entire instrument apart. That is also the case when using modern wood glues. A little bit of heat, a little bit of steam can take it apart, and this is much, much stronger. Hide glue over time can grow quite brittle, and if you receive a sharp knock in the exact wrong place, you will have issues. And that's, that is, I don't use hide glue in electric guitar building. Now, there is another glue that is the polyurethane, the stuff that foams up, and it's gap filling, and I think Gorilla Glue do a version. There's many different versions of it, and I used that for guitar building for many years. For electric instruments, I use it for almost everything. And then I did a test, or at least I reused hardware a lot in the early days, and even to this day, if I have a bum neck, I will take the truss rod out and scrap the neck, but take the truss rod out and put it in a different guitar, because I'm not going to throw away a truss rod. That would be madness. So I had this neck. It was broken in some way. I think I sanded the headstock down too thin or something like that, or it was just a bad neck. And I smacked the headstock on my workbench, and I heard a really strange sound. And when I looked at it, I hadn't broken the headstock in the slightest. I had essentially, with that one knock, delaminated 2/3 of the fretboard. And I went and I just pulled it off. And it took zero effort. And it turns out that polyurethane is okay, except when it's long grain on long grain. And I don't know, it just didn't do the job. And from that day, I haven't used it again. Now, I use Alkaline Professional. It is all I use. And this is a aliphatic resin based adhesive, and I love it. This is essentially the Type Bond 50, I think, recipe that's been licensed out by this company in South Africa. It has been used by Gibson forever. That's not a reason necessarily to use it, but well, it is. It is. I've seen the Gibson neck joints. I've taken Gibson Les Paul necks off and realised that the neck was being held in on maybe 2 inches of contact, and the rest was gap filled by glue. So actually, that's perfect. Let's use Type 150 or Alkaline Professional. This stuff even works on Gibsons. No, I take it back. Modern glues are incredible. Type Bond 2, Type Bond 3, they are obsessively designed at a molecular level to work very, very, very well when making things out of wood. Use them. Use them. Use them. Lucifer has come in with another super chat and has asked a question. He says, I have a maple fretboard. Can I finish it with wipe-on polyurethane? Yes, you can. It does depend on the polyurethane. It does depend on the finish and how hard it actually develops over time. But you can get, with a wipe-on varnish, you can get a very, very, very good finish. Shred is in progress right now. And that's what I'm not using wipe-on poly. I'm using the Crimson's water-based wipe-on guitar finishing varnish. But yeah, you absolutely can. You cannot use an oil finish on a maple fretboard or neck, for that matter, if you do not want to, after about 5 minutes of playing, have a dirty neck. So there we go. Real KH has come in and says, as long as it's a hobby, it doesn't matter if you don't have a tool and have to find a way around it. Time doesn't count because the way is the goal. And this is the thing. Unfortunately, the bulk of people who are doing this as a hobby also have very, very limited time in order to do the jobs. So, for example, in the last episode of Shred that went live yesterday, I showed a trick where when you're masking the fretboard of a guitar off when you are leveling and all of that, and you want to mask the fretboard off to protect it, you put the tape on. And I used to painstakingly, with a scalpel blade, angle the scalpel blade, so pretend my fist is the fret. I'd angle the scalpel blade at 45 degrees and cut just underneath the edge of the fret, and then with my nail push the remaining masking tape up against the fretboard and just make sure it was absolutely perfect. And it turns out that all of the times I did that, for 150, 200 guitar builds, all I actually needed to do was put one side of the masking tape down, fold it over itself, and push the other end up against the fret. I wasted dozens or maybe even hundreds of hours when I didn't need to. And half of my job is to show people the quick way that you can do it, even with limited tools. But yes, I agree. Just having the guitar at the end, that is a thing. Paul23 Fitz, how's it going? He sent £5 and he says, it'll never happen, but if you went into a music shop to buy a guitar, what songs or riffs would you play to test the guitar? I'm well known, all of you guys know that I have a really, really bad memory for names and for directions. I mean, I got lost in a lift once. These things go up and down. And I went up. Okay. In my defense, it was a triangular shaped building, and I had gone to a different lift to go down, and I didn't know that was the case. But still, I mean, yeah. Okay. So that being said, I would literally just noodle away on random pentatonic based stuff. It wouldn't be a riff or a song by somebody else, because I would either misremember what it is. I'm not a player. I play guitar. I can make noises out of it that a non-guitarist would go, wow. But a real guitarist, I mean, I've done demo videos on the channel and you can see it's just messing around, really. So yeah, there we are. I'm afraid I would just mangle it. Okay, let us have a look. I've missed a few questions. Christian Talbot's come in and said, I missed the live stream on Friday, so this is about epoxy. No worries. Have you seen a Spalt guitar? And if so, what do you think of them? I have seen Spalt, but it doesn't. It does not bring to mind epoxy. Unless that's somebody else I'm doing. Here I am on a live stream Googling another guitar company just to have a look at their images. Okay, so okay. Well, the first one that comes up, we've got multiple different types. This one I'm looking at is made out of 4 separate, very different types of wood. There is some resin. There's some holes, and this is the thing that I've seen. Yeah, okay, fine. No, I know them very well. They're not just resin, but they do heavily use a lot of resin in some of the more modern ones, and stroke, or it looks like the finish is very resiny. Honestly, I think that it is... It's incredibly impressive looking. And I am so happy that we are, as a hobby, as an industry, embracing things that are new. We are not just using flame maple, and we are not just using the prime, best quality cuts of wood or highly figured veneers or whatever. We're not doing that anymore. And that makes me incredibly happy. We've had a raw series of our production guitars for the last 5 or 6 years where I use wood with knots in it because I love it. Before the resin craze, I was doing that. I had the copper rodded guitar, which is 2 pieces of wood put together with rods of steel, actually. Misnomer there, but hey. Again, that was just at the sort of cusp of when resin was starting to be used and the first resin river table things were coming through. So I absolutely love that look. However, I am worried that, for example, resin tables are going to be scrapped in the next 10 years because while they are impressive looking, there's a cow outside my window and I just shat myself on TV. Bastard thing. Black and white bloody cow, and the white bits just like walking past my window in the dark. Okay, we're good. We're all right. Not a problem. I am not a scaredy cat. I worry about it going out of style and these instruments not being used, and that is what I think of that. However, we've got it. Now, Ivan Wizard has come in again and said, I literally have a workshop. I literally have a workshop because of you, Mr. Crow. I thank you greatly for getting off my settled ass. I must get extraction soon, though. I feel the same. I've got a couple of different extractors about the place, but the amount of space that I would save by just having one in a sort of soundproof lean-to or something out the back of the workshop would be incredible. One of the favorite things that ever happens to me, and this is pre-COVID, when I'm at a guitar show or at Maker Central or something like that, regularly people come up to me. The one guy screamed across the sort of crowded room saying, Mr. Benjamin Crow, I have filled an entire workshop with machines and tools and wood thanks to you, and my wife hates me. I love you. Thank you very much. Give me a hug. And it makes me incredibly happy. The fact that people are making and not just sitting there watching TV or playing computer games. I mean, I love watching TV and I love playing computer games, but this is my center. And sharing that with other people just makes me much happier. So yeah, thank you for watching, Ivan, and I'm really glad that you are in it. Christopher says, how can you avoid truss rod squeak? Okie dokie. I've never experienced truss rod squeak. The only thing that comes to mind is graphite impregnated oil. You can get it from locksmiths. Actually, a lot of the time will have that. And you need to hope that the squeak is at the end that you can sort of reach. And it's very penetrating. It's actually a penetrating oil. You can use that to lubricate the truss rod. Alternatively, I mean, you're not going to be adjusting the truss rod while you're plugged into an amp and in front of a crowd of people, are you? So I don't think it's necessarily that much of an issue. But there we go. Leighton Matthews has come in and got my attention with emojis of a chicken, some bacon, and a pork chop maybe. Says, Ben, is there a technique you can suggest for adding some density or more mass to a cheap, light guitar so as to turn it into something a bit more substantial? Maybe increase sustain? And then he ends it with a cake at the end, dessert at the end. I like it. Okay, I have long wanted to pour molten aluminium into a guitar. In fact, way before we did the Raw series, way before, I tried to do it with an outside blow forge that I jury-rigged out of the forge melted, actually. So I failed that utterly failed that one. But yeah, you can literally just impregnate some lead or something like that in a couple of holes if you have space to do that. I had an idea many years ago, and I thought it would be great to have a brass block inlaid underneath your bridge, and to have radiating out from that holes going to the edge of the guitar. And essentially in the brass block you've got tapped holes, and you then have pieces of metal of various sorts, from aluminium to brass to, hey, maybe some ebony or something, so not just metal. And those would or could be added or removed to utterly change the tonal characteristics, to maybe prove or disprove that one can utterly change the tonal characteristics of a guitar when played through an amp, or not. So anyway, that's an idea. You could do something like that and literally just have a couple of inch or inch and a half rods of metal that you glue into holes. It would work. Whether you actually should or need to, I don't know. I think that increasing the sustain of a guitar, a good way to do that would be to make the neck itself stiffer. So take the neck, add some carbon fiber rods to it, for example, or change the neck. I think a stiff, heavy neck mixed with a light weight body, I think, is my idea of a good sounding guitar. But yeah, there we go. Texan Guitars Push 2.0 is in. He says, I miss farm life. Moo, moo. I bloody don't. The other day I was just dreaming away and wondering what it would cost to buy part of this field, and it's apparently only about £7,000 or £8,000 an acre for farmland. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I will have a cow field myself at some point. Patrick Casey sent $5. He says, if you ever reach out to other YouTubers to participate in the Great Guitar Build-Off, I would suggest Adam Savage of Mythbusters fame. We've lost count of how many emails, messages, tweets, Facebook, etc. we have got in touch with Adam through every single method that we possibly can, and he is just not seeing them. I would love to work with him. I am a huge fan. You've just reminded me, actually, that I have not managed to see the final episode of the Raptor suit build. I don't know how that happened. Okay, I'm just going to check my messages quickly. We have got Stephen from SC Guitars. He is sending me messages just in case I miss a super chat. And that is it. This is one from last week. Rob Phoenix said, trying to watch the stream and fit an eBay neck to a Squire Strat. Multitasking is not advised. Not when you're... yeah. messing around with cheap necks. Definitely not. Okay. Now, I'm looking for another question. Feed me questions. Okay, Creville says, Ben, I have got a question for you. Not tool related, I'm sorry. Do you have any tips for placing the strap buttons? In my case, it is an Explorer type guitar. Pre-finish or, well, essentially you want to be aware of obviously how the guitar is going to balance in the end. And all I do is, when it's all together and you've got the harbor and all of that jazz, have the strap button where it's going to go on, depending on which the guitar is, on the horn or on the back of the neck, etc. And the other side, just hold it and sort of try and pinch it onto the body, and you should be able to see. If that isn't working, gaffer tape, duct tape. Duct tape is a brand, isn't it? But it is actually duct tape, and it's particularly useless at taping up ducting because it is temperature sensitive, and using it in an air conditioning ducting system causes the tape to fail. Another misnomer. Okay, there we go. Or, haha, an inaptonym. It is not an aptonym. Mr. Beard has a beard. That's an aptonym. Mr. Beard with no beard is an inaptonym. There we go. Please forgive me. I love words. I love words too much. Here's a question from Phil Plowman. He's sent €5. Thank you very much, Phil. He says, hey, Ben, I think I saw that Shred has an edged neck instead of a round one. Is that just for reduced friction or also for stability? Kind regards. Well, this is the beautiful thing about being able to stand up while I'm doing this. For one, I don't like sitting down at the best of times. Here is Shred, and you can sort of see I've been hand buffing. Here's a tip, actually. My sanding block is the most used tool in this entire build so far, and I ended up wrapping my microfiber cloth around the sanding block and used that as a buffing wheel, a buffing system, and it is so much better than just having a cloth in your hand, and I'm so annoyed that I've never thought of that before. Now, so that being said, the neck is multifaceted, and you can sort of see that in the light. There we go. It is an experiment. I built a guitar with a faceted neck like this once before, and I really liked the way it feels. So when I'm playing here, that facet there, my thumb sits on it very, very nicely, and the whole thing just feels, to me, much better. I have left it thick. It is a very, very chunky faceted neck, and I have left it thick so that I can, if I don't like it, just round it off, or I could make it thinner. This is an experimental guitar, and one that I'm going to be keeping and playing to see if I like it. And that's it. I suppose, even if I hadn't left it thick, that there is more material there, and that will make it a little bit more stable, perhaps, but also will make it more resonant. I mean, there's just a little bit more material there, so yeah, absolutely. I like it. Darren Upton says, would you build a guitar incorporating stained glass inlays in the body and headstock? Absolutely. I never did, but I bought one of those round quartz balls. It's about 1.5 inches with beautiful striations through it, rock quartz, and it had been turned into a lovely little ball, and I thought that would be great to have in a headstock, especially with a laser shooting through it or something. Frickin' lasers. So yeah, that would be cool. I saw one of the students at our school last year, so pre-lockdown, came in and used a bunch of broken pieces of antique Roman glass as the inlays in his neck, and they looked amazing. And in fact, he's given me some at the end of his course that he had left over for me to do the same thing, and I really want to do that. There we go. Librebel says, you know the beard thing describes ZZ Top. Yeah, I did. I wasn't sure. It is Frank Beard, isn't it? And he doesn't have a beard, and that is an inaptonym. But again, whenever a name is mentioned, whenever I have to say something like that, I get this horrific fear in the pit of my stomach, because I am so just incapable of remembering names that I just don't. So even if I am 99% sure, I just don't. I avoid it. Whew. Bedroom Programmer says, at Christopher, 1 or 2 drops of silicone in the channel before you put the truss rod in. So that would also help, again, stop truss rods from rattling in the channel, which they do. If you've got a dual action truss rod and the client, the guitarist, has the truss rod backed off, so it's not actually putting any tension on either way, then that can rattle, and that's an issue. Creeville says, I'm scared of fretting the neck. I made my life even harder and bought stainless steel frets. Why do I hate myself? Welcome to the club. I mean, I built a guitar with thousands of facets, and then I'm finishing it with a hand. Yeah, I don't know. I feel your pain. Stainless is just a little bit harder. As long as you radius them accurately to the fretboard, or radius them a little bit more, they go in quite easily. You don't have to worry about your tools too much. Most good fret leveling tools will deal with stainless steel frets without any issues. Thomas Gillis has come in with a $10 super chat. Thank you very much, Thomas. Welcome back. And says, how should one approach compensation when making an acoustic saddle/bridge? I see both saddles perpendicular to the strings and slanted to them as well. Okay, so with a saddle that looks perpendicular to the strings, the compensation, for one, it probably isn't entirely perpendicular, but the compensation, you'll have a fat saddle, and the compensation is filed into the top of it, like so. The best way to do it is, in all seriousness, to build a guitar, and while it is in the white, i.e. not finished, put the saddle, put the bridge, etc. in place, and then with a jig to hold the strings or some strings on a tailpiece, you leave the bridge flexible, basically, and use that to determine exactly where the bridge needs to be. So you move it up and about, you change the saddle around, you carve the saddle, etc. And then at the end, you mark exactly where the bridge is going to go. Make sure you don't forget that. You take the jury-rigged tailpiece off the guitar. It's been screwed into where the strap button is going, etc. So it won't cause you any issues. And that means that you know absolutely for sure where the guitar is going to be. I don't think I have ever strung up a guitar pre-finish. I have, however, regretted not doing that on more than one occasion. Tahoe Mike, come on, why did you have to ask that? It says, have you actually figured out the bridge for shred yet? No, not well. I think I have. But we will see tomorrow when I get on to actually doing it. In the last episode, I said that I thought the shred was going to be one more episode, and that was going to be it, because I do want to get on with the Great Guitar Build-Off. It might end up being 2, and then I start the Great Guitar Build-Off the following week. I'm not entirely sure. I had forgotten that Monday is supposed to be a bank holiday, and while I will be working, my editor, Talitha, will not be. So, yeah, a Wednesday finish is not likely. But then again, nobody really believed that I was going to do that anyway, now did they? Okay, now, there must have been a question from Alexander. Here we go. Alexander A says, would boxwood work for a nut, or does it really need to be plastic or bone? Boxwood is the king of woods. Now, there are 3 or more variations of it. English boxwood, European boxwood, there is Turkish boxwood, I think. And they're all fairly similar. It's an incredibly beautiful, tight-grained, yellowish wood that looks a little bit like antique ivory, to be honest, in the right light. And I do not think that you would have an issue with using boxwood. If you have a guitar with a plastic nut, I think you might notice a little difference in the tone, but it's going to be similar. And if you've got a particularly cheap plastic nut, one of those hollow, cast, nasty things, then actually the boxwood will probably sound better. Boxwood is incredibly easy to carve. It is lovely stuff. If you're doing netsukis and things like that, bring it on. And it is similar to ebony, in my opinion, as to how hard it can be. And I have used ebony nuts before on guitars where I want them to sound warm and with not very much attack, shall we say. And I think boxwood would have a similar effect. Now, I do think that bone is obviously a better thing. Bone is similarly easy to carve, etc., but has a brighter tone with a better attack. Yeah. So, experiment. That's all I can say on that. Tink has come in with a $5 super chat. Thank you very much, Tink. I appreciate it. Okay, it says, I'm planning on making a semi-hollow Telecaster. I plan on having a 2-inch blank and a 1-inch top. Is 3 inches too thick of a body? Honestly, actually no. Not in the slightest. I mean, it will look a little bit odd. Yes, it will look a little strange because we are programmed to expect a guitar to be 42 millimeters deep, period. 3 inches is 75 millimeters, so you've got a relatively small body guitar that is thicker. Not a problem though. It reminds me of the 1 or 2 of the hollow bodies that PRS did. And in fact, that's one of my dream guitars still. I need to make myself one. And it's a particularly beautiful instrument. It's a standard PRS shape, but with F-holes and thick as. And just stunning. So, no, I would say absolutely go for it. I don't see any issues. Yeah. Send me pictures. Hi, Van Flyheight. How you doing? No, I'm not going to do a call out to your friend who's a massive fan. Thank you very much. Fool me once. Aussie's 0, Bencro 1 tonight. I'm still mortified that I fell for that last time. Okay. Now, where are we? Is everything okay with stream? Have we got good audio and video? Is everything synced up correctly, etc.? Please let me know in the live chat. Now, here is a question from the Yicha. Says, I've started building a fretless bass recently. I'm really curious to see how well the laminated Bankurai stacking sticks will sound. Bankurai stacking sticks. It looks like there aren't many great matches for your search. I have absolutely no idea what. Indonesian Bankurai. Battens of wood. Okay, so we're actually getting something here. Again, you're watching me. Okay, so it looks like decking, external decking. I think that would work very, very well. Be aware when you are planning into stuff like that they're often impregnated with very nasty chemicals. Wear a mask if at all possible. You might honestly even have an issue with that finish seeking through and into your skin and causing troubles. So I might be being a little bit paranoid here, but yeah, just be aware, please. Van. Naughty man. Patrick Nesbo says, question, I'm rebuilding a Harley Benton Explorer. I am looking to reshape the body, the MX250. I will add wood and then cut the new shape. What tools are good to have? Okay. You can do it with a Japanese saw rasp, and that's the only tool you have, potentially. It depends if you want to keep Explorer style facets and corners and curves. Alternatively, a rasp stroke sandpaper and a jigsaw to cut it out. Although again, a jigsaw cuts around the curves quite nicely, but if you don't mind cutting off lots of different angles like that, you can cut a nice curve. It just takes you 3 or 4 times longer. We're again talking about tools, and if you don't mind taking 2 hours to do a job, you can do it with a £5 saw that, you know, everybody and their aunt has got in their garage, or go and spend, I don't know, 50 to 100 on a good jigsaw, and that will do it quicker and faster and more accurately. Yeah, really, there's many different ways to skin that cat. Dennis Osmondson says, can you take 2 pieces of wood and glue them together to make a fretboard longer? Yes. Okay, so we are here talking about the thing to be aware of is how much strength would you be removing from the neck if you did that. The reason that a tree is strong is because you've got grain going from one end to the other, and it is resistant to change and moving, etc. So, for example, there was an experiment to see how we would be able to grow, to create a biome on Mars. I'm pretty sure it was Mars. It might have been the moon, but I think Mars. And the question was, okay, can trees grow in a vacuum? So we went to a desert somewhere or something like that, and we created a dome, and I think it was in a vacuum, and they essentially took away the air, I suppose. I'm not entirely sure. This is a really bad story. But the crux of the matter was that the trees would grow and then fall over and die. And the scientists are trying to figure out why are these trees falling over? What the hell, man? Trees don't fall over. And it turned out that without wind constantly blowing the trees backwards and forward, they don't develop the strength required to stand up straight. Take that away and use it as you will. So that being said, we've got a fretboard that is now made out of 2 pieces of wood, laminated end grain to end grain. I'm assuming that you would hide the join underneath a fret. Everything in me is saying don't do it, just buy a fretboard that's the right size. But then again, with the Cyberpunk 2077 build, I took multiple 4th quality fretboards, ebony fretboards, cut them all up, and then laminated them all together to create a pixelated effect that also made a much stronger fretboard. That's quite attractive. So yes, the guitar's very dusty. Fine. Wait there. Hold on. I do need to finish working on this guitar. There she is. So that's the fretboard there. You can see the pixelated effect. And that's multiple different pieces of wood. But because they were all laminated together in that fashion, it's strong, and the neck is stable and strong. I need to finish this guitar. Come on. That was my last build before the last great guitar build off. No, the first great guitar build off. Okay. I wouldn't recommend it, and if you are going to do it, then I would definitely say underneath on the gluing surface, glue in 4 or 5 strips of something else. So route a slot and put a strip of carbon fiber or something in there to mechanically join the two pieces together, and hide your joint beneath the fret. Okay. This is from Fugal Fixer Spike. He says, question, can you imagine using nothing but a CNC and sandpaper to build? That's my build. Was doing the neck too, but burned down the shop and CNC. Holy crap. Frugal Fixer Spike, please send me an email to stream@crimsonguitars.com and tell me the story of that, and yeah, let me know if there's any way that we can help. That sounds monumentally shitty. I had a message from Safi, who is the lady that manages my tool shop, vintagetoolshop.com. Safi decided we were having a sale last week, so if you fancy supporting Safi, vintagetoolshop.com, there's 10% off all 7,000 plus tools that we have there, and they're not just vintage, but that sale is going on till the 14th of, I nearly said February. I think we're in May right now. My mind is still in February. She sent me a message and said, Ben, I'm very sorry, but I'm not going to be able to go and visit these two people. She was going to go and price up and hopefully buy a bunch of tools. She says, I'm not going to be able to go and visit these people tomorrow morning. I'm sorry about that. And she just sent me a photograph, and it was of a bunch of fire trucks and her garage on fire. And it's the same thing. Her Myford lathe was not in the garage. They just moved house. But Ben, her husband's, she's married to a Ben, good name, I think. All of his tools were in there. And he had been a practicing mechanic for decades, and all of his personal tools were in there. And the damned insurance company wouldn't cover them for the tools. And they weaseled out of it. Yeah. So anyway, public safety announcement. I have got a digital. I said this last week. I've got a digital Nest fire alarm system in here that is hooked up to my phone, and the second anything goes wrong, it is going to phone me, and if it doesn't phone me, if I don't answer, it'll phone somebody else, and it sends messages and things and stuff. And on top of that, this workshop is insured to the gunnels. Yeah. Anyway, I'm very sorry that happened, but to your question, can you imagine using nothing but a CNC and sandpaper to build? I really can. I suppose that the sandpaper would have to be attached to a leveling beam, because unless you're only using chunks of wood, I suppose you could make a fender style neck where the fretboard is part of the neck, and using the CNC you route a skunk stripe from the back where your truss rod goes in. That could actually work. So even there, and then if your body is a one-piece body with no jointing, you wouldn't need to worry about jointing it. It could be fun. I mean, a challenge, and I think I would feel really, really naughty if I didn't use a hand plane at least once. I'd have to come into the workshop at 2 a.m. off without camera and just plane a bit of wood. Anyway, Richard Garnish is saying the stream is excellent. Thank you very much. I am always so paranoid about how this is going and the audio and all that jazz. Okay, now guys, there's more than 300 of you and only 126 likes, so please hit that like button. Yeah, it makes a big difference to how many other people get recommended and all that jazz. It is a very unlikely hope, but one day I would love to be able to say that I have 1 million subscribers. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but it would be so cool. Now, okay, what diameter? This is Javier de Jesus. How do you pronounce that? Javier de Jesus. What diameter router bit should I use for pickup cavities for rounded corners? So I tend to use a 1/2 inch router cutter to get the bulk of it off, or 3/8 of an inch with a bearing on it. And then right at the end, I take a 1/4 inch router cutter without a bearing, and I run the smooth shaft of the router bit on the template. And as long as you don't stay still for too long, you might burn the template a little bit, but it goes into those corners, because if you are using pickups that have a cover on, then you have to have the tightest radius inside those corners, assuming that, yeah, you just have to. So there we go. We're also now setting a load of templates of Crimson Guitars for pickups and things, by the way. Let me get the shameless self-promotion out of the way. And how long have we been going now? Oh, there we go. 1 hour and 1 minute. There we go. Patrick Nesbo comes in and says, I am rebuilding a... Oh, no, I've already read that. Sorry. There we go. That's why I recognize your name. Hold on. I saw a number. Frugal Fixer says mine paid out 120 grand. I'm going to assume that your insurance company paid out 120 grand for your garage. Or not. Okay, so Frugal Fixer says my CNC dust got in a powder coating oven control box. Crikey. Matt Lang says, would Crimson consider growing their own bamboo to make guitars and necks? Wouldn't that be particularly environmentally friendly? Matt, I have got a video going live tomorrow, I suspect, actually, which was me answering questions on sustainability and guitars and the guitar industry, and bamboo was mentioned, I'm fairly sure. Now, yes, I would. Absolutely. I would like to make a guitar out of bamboo, and I'm thinking about many different ways. I'm not sure if we would grow it ourselves. That is, well, for one thing, I don't have anywhere where I would actually grow it, unless I do buy that field behind me. That could be a cool bamboo grove. But the issue that I have with that is the production technique, and the fact that it will end up using a lot more glue, and how environmentally friendly is the glue, and it's just this rabbit hole that you get down. Okay, so this is a quick question, or a comment at least, from 666 Girl. She says, my partner Paul loves your channel. You've inspired him many times on his own projects. Do you have a favorite guitar that you've made from scratch? And please, could you give him a wave? Hi Paul, how you doing? I was about to say the 12-hour guitar that I have up at the house, because it is my favorite guitar to play that I've ever made, that I still regularly play. I suspect that Nebula 2 is going to trump that guitar. I really do. And I'm going to have to make myself Nebula 3 as soon as I can, because it is just an incredible guitar. And it's swiftly... I think it's going to be Nebula 2, my 12-hour guitar, and then the 2020 Explorer I built in January 2020 before 2020 happened. So yeah, there we go. We have a question here from Michael Menkes. He sent 10 Canadian dollars. Thanks very much, Michael. He says, "Hey Ben, this is a tip for Samuel. This is a tip for Samuel for getting my kit to me this week. A perfect piece of ash, working and listening at the same time." I don't have my notebook. There we go. Permanent record. Well, thank you very much. Sam is the Director of Operations at Crimson, and he is currently rebuilding the entire kit-making department from the ground up, trying to make it more efficient and better, and that is exactly the sort of comment that I want to hear from you. So thank you very, very much. Please go and leave a review at Google, or I don't know, reviews help. And of course, since you had a positive experience, I'm going to ask you to do a review. If you didn't have a positive experience, please get in touch with me personally and I will see what I can do. Okay. Jeff Wickbird has also sent 10 Canadian dollars. Thank you. It says, "Hey Ben, would you finish a maple fretboard?" Good question. Would you finish a maple fretboard before putting the frets in or after? I'm thinking of doing a mountain inlay with a sunset burst on a bird's eye fretboard. That sounds delicious. My daughter hates it when I say delicious when it's not something edible, but she's not watching the stream. She's not watching the stream because I haven't let her have Twitch. And we're not on... No, I've let her have Twitch, but we're not on Twitch. And she says, well, you know, since I'm not allowed a YouTube channel because I'm only 12, I'm only going to support you if you either let me have a YouTube channel or you start streaming on Twitch. You didn't need to know any of that, did you? Nothing. Okay. Jeff. Finishing the maple fretboard is always done after the frets are in. And the reasons are multitudinous. Essentially, if you finish before you put the frets in, the act of putting the frets in will almost invariably damage the fretboard. It will almost invariably damage the finish. Now, the only way, and also the fret slots themselves, will end up having finish going in them, and you're going to have to then clean them out. And it's a whole thing. Essentially, you've got one option that will cause trouble and will take twice as long, or you've got option 2, which is you put the frets in, you spray your finish over after the fact, and then with a scalpel blade, you, at a slight angle, as I described earlier, cut in at the edge of the fret on both sides, and then at the two ends, and you just peel the finish off. And you've got a fret that's perfect and ready for leveling, crowning and polishing, etc. So yeah, that is 100% how I would do that. Okie dokie. Chauncey Sullivan says 30 years old is vintage. Yeah, I'm 40 next week. Imagine. Well. So technically, my wife has a vintage clothes shop, and it turns out that 20 years old in clothes is considered as vintage. And I realized that 20 years ago was 2001. I vividly remember 2000 being the future. Anyhow, so there we go. Bedroom programmer, any wisdom from Ben? Not likely. Regarding taking the top of a cheap kit and putting a new top on it. Anything to look for? Okay, so if you even need to take the top off, I would suggest the easiest thing to do is surface what you've got and put another top just on top of the existing top that you have. I said the word top too many times. Top tip. Tip top. . Stop being an idiot, Ben. Now, if you do that, then you are going to have to take a piece of the top that you put on and glue it to the back of the neck pocket in order to make sure that your neck is then at the correct height. But that's, that's fine. If you're not going to do that, then find a joinery shop near you, ply the foreman with a couple of bottles of beer, or maybe just offer to pay them to borrow their machine for 5 minutes, and have them put your guitar through a thickness sander. A wide belt sander is one of the other terms for that. And essentially, over a couple of minutes, they will just sand it perfectly flat, and they will remove the material that you want to remove. Those are fantastic machines, and yeah, it would do very, very well for you. Real KH says, I still need a spoke shave. I will give the tool shop a shot. I know for sure that there is a curved sole record spoke shave with the 2 adjustment knobs that adjust the blade currently in stock. So yeah. So there we go. Worldwide Ghosts says, bloody insurance shite-talks. I think my leg has been bitten, which is why I'm sort of scratching the back of my leg. Something's got me. Okay, Javier de Jesus says, anybody know where I can get router bits / bearings appropriate for binding? All the ones I've found are too big. Radian router cutters do a fantastic binding set, and in the interests of not being an arsehole, StewMac also do. I think that's the first time I've ever suggested anybody go to StewMac for anything, but hey, it's not something that we currently sell, so yeah, go for it. Bum 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 bum. Real KH says, I can see Ben hammering in frets with a leveling beam. No, you can't. I would rather go outside and find a nice rock and then use a leveling beam to smooth the rock off and then use the rock to hit the frets in. But we're good. Okay, there we go. A bunch of you clicked like. I really appreciate it. Dave T says, coffee beads, which has definitely got my attention, says, hi Ben, what defines and classes a vintage tool as vintage? Okay, so you have a very good point here. I somehow regret, I sort of regret calling the tool shop the vintage tool shop. Because we don't just buy vintage tools, we buy used tools. And yeah, that's it. So the Vintage Tool Shop is a vintage and used tools specialist. We have 7,050 on the website or so. That was the count just before I went live. It is what it is. So I would go with the same thing as the tool shop. What classes a vintage tool as vintage is anything over 20 or maybe 30 years, really. But I have tools that are 200 or 300 years old that are absolutely fully functional and amazing. I've got a plane in a cupboard behind the camera and I'm not going to get it out. That is literally the same age as the Mary Rose. We're talking 400 plus years old. And if I sharpened the blade and did a little bit of work on it, I could use that plane as a plane. That amazes me. Oh. Okay, don't get so excited, Ben. John Young says, Ben, idea. Hook a vibrating mechanism to a sapling to create superwood. That really is not a bad idea. I think it would be horrendously... Well, I suppose... okay. Would you be able to hook up some sort of a mechanism that just accentuates the natural wind, that wouldn't use power, etc.? That would also create interesting figure in the instrument, in the wood. I think I'm fairly sure. I really need to look into this properly. I think flame and figuring is as a function of the movement of the tree. So yeah, there we go. The real wonky dog says smash the like button. Like the smash button, go for it. Now, Dennis Osmondson, yes, I answered. You can make a nut out of wood. How would you make the nut slot without nut slotting files? If you're using wood, you should be able to use actually just the guitar strings. I would get some sort of a clamping mechanism to clamp the two ends to turn it into a saw. In fact, just a saw would do the job. Put a guitar string there, make sure it's under tension, and then have at it. Now that it would also work on bone, etc. It's just so slow. There we go. Anyhow, I saw something that said spokeshave question. Crewville says spokeshave question. What is the difference between a curved and a plain sole? Why and when should I use which? So for guitar building, I predominantly use curved soles, period. A flat sole is for facets and for something that is either flat or curving away from the blade. A curved sole allows you to get inside of a curve, and you are predominantly going to be using your spokeshave inside of curves, the tummy carve, the neck, etc. So a curved sole spokeshave is the thing. I would say Luthiers come back in with another $5. Thanks very much, dude. Or dudess, I'm not going to assume. Have you ever used lacewood? Yes. What are your thoughts on it? I hate it. My buddy wants me to build him a teddy with a lace top. Go for it. It's really pretty. I just personally think it's ugly. Wow, what a statement. And any finishing tips would be cool. I have used lacewood a couple of times at the behest of customers. In fact, in my van right now is a guitar I made many years ago that had 14 different types of wood, including lacewood. I do not know what it is about lacewood. I just don't like the look of it. That being said, it is very regular. It's nice and stiff. And if the customer likes the look of it, by all means, please go and make it. It's utterly valid. There's no reason not to. It's my personal taste that is at fault here. Finishing, it has a... to my memory, and it's a long time since I used it, it's got quite a large variation between the hard and soft sections of grain. But if you use grain filler, it would work perfectly. Even a slurry of guitar finishing oil, etc., rubbed in with 1500 grit or 1200 grit wet and dry paper will fill the pores, etc., fairly well. But yeah, other than that, it's just like anything else. Felipe Carnero has come in with 20... I don't know what that currency is, so I'm not going to guess. Thank you very much. It says, hi Ben, I was building a 3-piece neck and realized that apparently I glued one of the pieces with the grain oriented in the opposite direction. Am I screwed? It depends on which piece. And it really depends on the wood and the variation in grain. Send us an email to stream@crimsonguitars.com. And then he said stream at vintagetoolshop.com, which is not an email address. And send us a photo. If it is the central section, then it makes no difference because that is supported on either side by the whatever's happening on the other side. If it is one of the outside pieces and you have enough room, I would say try and cut it off and flip it. But if you've got 3 pieces of wood and the grain is relatively straight and relatively parallel and flipping it is only a little bit weird, probably won't be an issue. If you are going to use carbon fiber stiffening rods or something like that, it should be fine. But this is one of those things where I have to say it depends. But send us a photo and we will have a look and we'll get back to you with that. Dennis Lemadeline says, tools. Ben, is it worth it to build a nice ukulele as a first build before I go for it with an acoustic? Yes and no. It depends. Now I'm just doing it to be an arsehole. In some ways, making a ukulele is easier than making a full-sized acoustic guitar. In some ways, it's actually going to be harder. And I would say yes, go for it. But only if you are going to love and play and cherish that ukulele. If not, just build an acoustic. It's the same processes for the most part, and doing something tiny is often a lot more difficult than making something full size. And also people, well, they don't value the small ukuleles as much as they should, given how hard they are to make by hand. That being said, I have never built a ukulele myself from scratch, so that is somewhat of a guess on my part. Okay. Sharona Conkle says, happy birthday, Ben, and then puts a couple of cakes in there. Thank you very much. I'm quite looking forward to being 40. I don't know. I feel like I'm finally going to grow up or something. It's going to be this magic, just poof, 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 poof. Wow, you're actually a grown-up now. Or maybe. Richard Garnish says, Vampire Cow got Ben by the leg. It wouldn't bloody surprise me. Y007P says, what are your thoughts on epoxy as a guitar finish, Ben? It is a valid finish. It's often self-leveling, but it is also difficult to control how thick of a finish you get. And in reality, I think that a two-part finish that's sprayed on with a gun will get you a much thinner, but still as protective finish. And we do want a hard but thin finish in order to protect the guitar, add to the resonance without smothering the guitar. A thick epoxy finish can smother the wood and stop it vibrating and feeding back on itself and creating the sounds that we love. So, yeah, treat it with respect. Greville says that I read that a flat sole is better for guitar necks. Honestly, no. If you are only using the spoke shave in between on the flatter section of the neck, then yes. But that means you've got a bunch of carving to do with a rasp, etc. With a little bit of practice, a curved spoke shave is better for you. The flat one will not let you banana the shape. That is true. To a certain extent, at least. It's maybe easier to use. And hey, this is the guy that owns a tool shop saying just buy the round one. But if you want to get both, then please by all means get both. I'm not going to dissuade you. I'm going to rewind this whole thing and say no, buy both of them. Alrighty. Luke Nicholson, original music, says 1 million subs within 2.5 years guaranteed. I sincerely doubt it. I would love to. David Hardiman says, how many tools? At least one more than I currently own. The gag is that the mathematical equation for how many guitars / tools / I don't know, watches that a man needs to own, that a person needs to own, is X plus 1, with X being the number that you currently own. And there we go. Somebody must have made that into a t-shirt. All right, who's quitting for the day? Real KH, sorry, I have to quit for today. Nice as always. Have a good start in the week. Thanks very much, dude. Have a fantastic whatever you're going to go and do. We are, going to miss you. Clockwork guitar in the pipeline, Ben. That's from David Hardiman. Not actually clockwork. I would love to work out some mechanisms that would do things like that. I am partnering up with a UK brand, Vertex watches. I fell in love with their version. I think I might even have an image of it here for you to see. Where are we? There we go. I fell in love with the bronze 75 version of the Dirty Dozen watch that they made in the 1940s for the British military, and essentially I approached them and said, hey, listen, I've been thinking about doing a watch-based build for many years, and I love your watch. I love the applied indices and the numerals and all that jazz. I like everything about the brand. Do you fancy working together? And he said, oh, hell yes, because he likes guitars as well. And it's the push I needed to actually get on and do it. So my next build after the Great Guitar Build-Off is going to be watch-inspired. And I do have many ideas. Whether I'm going to be able to work out an actual mechanism that does something that's worth doing, that is clockwork. I have thoughts and plans for the control knobs and how that system works. I do, but we will see. Ideas? Anybody got any ideas about what I can do that's actual clockwork in a guitar that would be worth doing in that way? Obviously, we immediately think about tremolos, but yeah. Anyhow, let me know in the comments and stroke or the live chat, please, and we'll go for it. Creeville says, I've just gone into the kitchen for half a second and now there's watches. What have you guys done? I'll clear it off. There was David Hardiman. It's it's all his fault. Reverend Wolf Guitar says, complication bass. So I am going to do a complication guitar. Another one. I'm gonna do another complication. This time, however, I am going to carve a solid lump. In fact, I'm quite excited about this. So I found in the original complication, I was, until I realized it was going to be horrendously stupid and tantamount to emotional suicide, I was going to carve a similar piece for the back of the guitar. And that piece of flame maple that I carved the top from, I cut out of a plank and I kept the other half. And that other half is going to be turned into a kit guitar for me by Crimson. And I am then going to carve a complication style carve into that body. So it's not going to be something hugging another guitar. The whole body is going to be that. It's going to be fun. I sincerely hope it's going to be fun. We will see. Okay. Luthier says inlay an actual watch at 12. We could potentially do that, and still a running watch that you have to charge up to use. That could be quite cool. Open back tuners for starters. Well, I mean, yes, absolutely. I have always thought about actually making my own tuners just to see if I could, and I'm fairly sure that I hate myself so much. Come on. At what point is it folly to make something to see if you can make it when for 20 quid you can get that thing that's perfectly functional? Do I really need to spend 2, 3, 4 weeks of my life making a set of tuners that I could, you know, buy for the price of a round of drinks? That being said, I have a dream. I have a dream. I don't think I'm ever going to do it, but I would love to make a guitar on video and write a book based on building this guitar from scratch. And by from scratch, I mean grow the material, forge the metal, make the pickups, smelt the copper, you know, literally every single part of it from scratch. I think I need to go lie down somewhere. Anyhow, let me know if you think that would be worth doing or not. I know you're going to egg me on, and I'm going to say no. Ben Timon says, use a pocket watch and inlay into the guitar body. I mean, this is the thing. So anybody else who has done a watch-based build does do that sort of stuff, and it feels cheap and easy. It's, yes, I could take some cogs and wheels and pieces, and I've got drawers full of watches and things and movements and, you know, stuff and parts. And if that watch was real, that'd be 250 grand. I cleared a watchmaker's workshop and found a bunch of fake watches. So I could take that stuff and I could inlay that into a guitar, absolutely. But it doesn't serve a purpose and it doesn't have a meaning. I want to have a mechanism that is there for a purpose and does something rather than just looking good. I mean, looking good is cool, absolutely. But if there is a mechanism, it needs to be functional. And that's what we're doing. Okay. David Hardyman just says, I got Ben talking about watches. Okay. Dave T says, more caffeine. Ben, I've inherited some 1920s tools from my father. Any suggestions on sympathetic restoration, including planes, files, saws, hammers, hand drills, spanners, oil cans, screwdrivers, and more? Okay. You can definitely offload them on me if you really fancy it. If not, and again, everything is down that side, we use I think it's a silicon-based 1-inch wide by 6-inch wheel that goes on a pigtail on our grinder, on a bench grinder. And that is what I use to very rapidly remove rust, etc. from planes. Now, you can take... I'm not going to hold that over my computer. You can take a plane in this condition. This is a stunning, it's 1870, 1880, thereabouts, I would say, US Stanley number 3. And you can take that to absolute perfection with one of those wheels. Now, another way to do it that is slower but gives a much nicer patina is to take a blunt chisel, but a blunt chisel that still has... It needs to be blunt but not chipped in any way, shape or form. So even if it is, maybe take a leveling beam to it or something and sand the edges and sand the faces so it's nice and even 90 degrees. You're essentially making a machinist's scraper. And using that, you scrape along the edge of the plane and that just cuts the rust off. And it takes a lot longer, but the patina that you get is alive. And you've got the feel of it being old. And as long as it doesn't have checks and scratches and things in the scraper, in the chisel that you're using, you'll end up with a beautiful finish that still has the character of the age, and that is the sympathetic part of the restoration. And then if you use a linseed oil or guitar finishing oil over the metal to seal it in. That just adds to the whole character. It just, yeah. I think that I used one of those wheels in a plane restoration video on this channel at some point many years ago. You should possibly, I'm sure you'll see it. Cool Wood Italy says, tools! Have you tried the Triton surface planer? Any thoughts? Yes, it is over there. It's a TP something. I can't quite get the number out. I tried it and I use it and I absolutely love it. It is 6 inches wide, if I'm not mistaken, which sadly is an inch or so too narrow for two-piece guitar bodies. That's the only quibble I have with it. I love the way the guard moves up and down and the adjustability of it. The fence is incredibly adjustable. Much more. I have had multi-100-pound big planers with much worse fences on them. So yeah, it is a very, very good tool. And I suppose I need to say that I am sponsored by Triton a lot. They are one of the main sponsors of the channel. That being said, I was using their tools and advocating their use for a good 7 or 8 years before we ever entered into any sort of relationship. And you guys know that you can trust me, that I'm not bullshitting you. It's a fantastic tool. In fact, on the subject of Triton, if you're in the market for a sliding compound miter saw, I had the one and only prototype of that saw in my workshop a couple of weeks ago, and I'm looking at an unopened box of it. They have got a limited number, and it is incredible. It's the only miter saw that I've ever seen that would fit on a workbench against a wall, and it's amazing. It's got this dual bar system. They have obsessively engineered it, and it's literally, it's probably the best tool they make at the moment, and that's saying something. I love their routers. Anyhow, let us go on. Bedroom programmer, I like you. A mechanical iris in the sound hole that is operated by a clockwork to open and close with time on its own. Oh! Okay. You are getting me very excited, sir. Oh, come on, this new phone. Not that I'm ever going to forget that suggestion. So there's a company that I'm sure you've seen advertised on YouTube and Adam Savage's channel that do a brass iris tool. I can't remember the name of the company. In fact, I think they changed their name at some point. But yeah, that would be incredibly cool. Where are we? Okay, it's nearly 10:40. And that means we've been going for more than an hour and a half. And I'm getting a little bit tired, but let's see. Buy all the tools. Give me questions, people. Chauncey Sullivan says, would Crimson make custom radius blocks? It depends in which way. We could definitely make longer or shorter ones than we currently do in the same radiuses. If you want one with a special radius, we could do it, but we would have to charge you, I think, for the time that it takes to draw that path for the CNC machine, etc. It's certainly possible and definitely worth a question. Drop Sam an email through. Richard Garnish says Maker's Cabinet. Yes, Maker's Cabinet is the company. Do I? Here I am rummaging through drawers. They also do They also do a pencil sharpening plane that goes upside down on your desk, which is quite cool. It's quite cool. Animatron guitar from Chauncey Sullivan. beyond my skills and capabilities, but that would be fun. Robert Tootle says that sounds a bit similar to the Festool miter saw. Honestly, I actually haven't looked at anything by Festool in many years. I refuse to tempt myself, and I don't like making my wallet weep openly. I absolutely know that they make incredible tools, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if Festool came up with the first and then tried and said, hey, we need to get some of that, and then made something that's almost as good, but is like a third of the price. So there we go. Tahoe Mike says cuckoo clock works that have little figures pop out and tell you to go practice on the hour. Now you're just playing with me. Luthiers says put the volume and tone knobs on the side of the guitar like a watch. Lol, sorry, watches. Yes, that's something that I've considered, although I would rather it was on the face of the guitar with the applied numerals in that loom, such as the Vertex Bronze 75. Will be great. Ural Sage says that bottle makes it look like you're drinking your stain products. Did anybody catch? So in one of the videos I did with Nebula, I had a bunch of little stain pots, and I didn't know where to put one of them, so I pretended to drink it. I thought that was the funniest thing ever, and nobody commented. Anyhow. Okay. Ivan Wizard says, Bean! Did you build the 2020 case in the end? No, I haven't. Honestly, at this stage, with Great Guitar Build-Off happening and all of this jazz, I've decided that we are just going to buy a case for the guy, and because that guitar is going off to a chap who won it, who lives in Canada. And the COVID utterly just scuppered the whole thing. I have some material that I was going to make it out of, but with everything that's happened, I simply don't have the time to do it, and it's looking like another 6 months down the road before he could have his guitar, and I am feeling horrific about it. So we're just going to send it out in a case that somebody else has made for it. I will get to case making at some point on the channel, I'm sure. Uriel says, "Oh, I just made a jig for making my own radius blocks. Works great. Pendulum style jig that holds a router." There is a couple of those online I've seen, so yeah, go. That's a valid option. Garage Master Guitars. I don't think I've seen you here before. Hi. Ben, hi. Pros and cons of forgetting to remove the masking tape from the truss rod channel when gluing on the fretboard. Nothing, no con whatsoever. The pros are that the glue doesn't get into the truss rod. The cons are you are compressing a thin piece of masking tape. Okay. If you have used an inch wide piece of masking tape down the center of the neck, then that is potentially an issue because you're taking up quite a large part of the surface area of the fretboard stroke neck where the glue isn't actually going to be gluing it together. That being said, as I said earlier in this podcast, we've got a podcast coming, guys. The modern glues are incredibly good, and I don't think that you're going to have an issue even there. For many, many years, I have put a strip of masking tape down over the truss rod. I have cut it off so that it's only covering a millimeter on either millimeter of the neck on either side of the truss rod, and then I put the glue on and I glue the fretboard down. And essentially, the act of clamping the fretboard down compresses the masking tape very thin, and I have never had an issue, and I've done that literally hundreds of times. So I don't think you should have too much of an issue. Phil Plowman says crunchy chicken burger. Build an acoustic guitar and fit you are. I'm not going to fit a cuckoo clock in anything. I hate cuckoo clocks. I'm talking about watches here. Oh, come on, man. Tim says, I would like to see you build a guitar with nothing but hand tools. How long would that take? That is the single most asked for build on the entire channel, and I've just never gotten around to doing it. I will do it, I promise. Ben, this is from Coolwood, Italy, says, Ben, what frets do most people request in a build? I've used tall, narrow frets in all mine as I love them, but I'm not sure if it's the norm. Tall and narrow is absolutely not the norm. Most people want medium jumbo. So relatively tall, relatively wide, and that's what I use on 99% of my guitars because it is. But Creeville says, for FFS, Ben, I did comment on the stain shot. He is clearly ignoring me. Oh, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you for noticing. I really appreciate it. I do not see every single comment. I try and see every single comment, but obviously I missed yours. And it's not because I don't think you're important. It's because I am just... I'm not good enough. It's just the way it is. Paul Allen says, what is the cuddly toil behind? Garfield or a squirrel? It's a squirrel. Because I get distracted a lot. And a fan brought that to me at one of the guitar shows. And I love it. And it will be with me always. So, yeah. Thomas F says, hi Ben, I wonder if this is construction foam on your plane in the back to your left, to my left. That? No. I think that's what you were after. No, that was just a shaving from the last time I used it. Oh my god, my tools are so dusty. I'm going to go through with a compressor and blow the dust off everything tomorrow. Okay, we have got 14 minutes left. I'm going to do this as a 2-hour podcast live stream, and then I am going to cut it off there and then. If you have any questions that you absolutely want me to hear, send it through as a super chat. If not, it is a crapshoot, and I might see it, I might not. Grammar Sau and Faborden says, do the GGBO guitars using only hand tools and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. No. I only have 3 weeks to do it. So no, but I do want to do it soon. Uriel Sage says, here's a question. I have a swamp ash body blank with a couple of small splits on the end grain. Splits aren't visible from the top or bottom. Still usable? Remedies? Yes, absolutely usable. Shouldn't be an issue. Avoid them if at all possible. But if they are tiny and small, then it really shouldn't be an issue. Flood them with glue and dust and be done with it. Once it is slabbed underneath a top, for example, you should be fine. Scott Stephen 19 says, hi Ben, I've asked before, but any plans to build an acoustic guitar like a Dreadnought or a Jumbo? Yes, I have done in the past, but it's one of those things that takes longer to build an acoustic. And I really take a hell of a long time to build my instruments because I spend at least 1/3 of my time running the businesses and the other 1/3 running the cameras. And my actual build time is relatively limited, which is quite sad. That being said, I am planning on building some acoustic guitars. I will be doing a full-bodied arch-top F-hole jazz guitar at some point. And I very much like the idea of building a small-bodied parlor style acoustic instrument. I love small-bodied parlors. I just really love them. But I will be doing stuff like that for sure. How's it going, Vax Hedrum? Welcome to the chaos. Cath says, I just bought a lot of stuff from your shop. I can't wait to receive them. Lots of stains. You can't beat a pile of stains to play with. I remember the first time I ever bought a bunch of stains, 20 odd years ago or more. The playing, the fun, it was frolicking. Okay. Alan Wood says stain shot was noticed, but should be left as an Easter egg. Ben Timon says, what's your favourite old tool and why? Okay, the first one that comes to mind which is a little dusty. This is an 18th century stone carver's mallet, made out of the crotch of a piece of oak, basically. And you can see the curve there where they've used it to hit the things and the stuff, and it is, and why? I mean, I could do some serious damage with that, and I just love it. I will do a live stream where I set up. I want to move these computers off my workbench and move them a little bit further back and get a working area here and have a camera pointing down. And then I can do a live stream where I've got the comments and the questions and stuff, but I've actually got stuff on the bench for you guys to see. And I would happily do something like that at some point, going through some of my tool collection and talking about what these things are and how they excite me and all that. Or maybe I'll just do a video series where it's 5 minutes on this tool and 5 minutes on that tool and some pretty images and things. I would love to. Luthiers come in with a $5 super chat and said, "Fret a guitar with that mallet." Anyway, thanks for all you do for us. It's an absolute pleasure, really. And isn't it beautiful? That it's the fact that generations ago somebody was using this and using it and using it and using it, and I'm holding it in my hands now, and I could use it myself. And generations ago somebody was using this. It just fills me with such joy. Yeah, so there we go. I have many favorite tools. There's another one here. This isn't a vintage tool. That wasn't the question. That was the question, sorry. This is a tiny little apple thing that somebody made. It's a tape measure. And the stem, you just do that all up. And it's got a little threaded thing in the bottom there, and the tape measure goes inside. It's just beautiful. There are so many amazing things in this world, and I'm lucky, very lucky, that I seem to have a lot of them here. I fell into having a tool shop. I fell into having a successful guitar building company and a school and all this jazz, and as a result of that, I have toys. And it's down to you guys supporting me and watching and supporting the shops, etc., that I have all of this. So thank you very much for all that you do. Okay, NTV UK says, "Hi Ben, I'm in the market for a small block plane, vintage of course. Any recommendations?" Depends on how small, but a little Stanley 110 is beautiful. The only thing I would suggest is be aware the mouth size. So look at the photographs and see how wide the mouth is. If you've got too much of a gap between the front of the blade and the back of the front part of the sole, I think it's called the toe actually, you want that to be relatively fine if at all possible. And a lot of the smaller, cheaper vintage block planes didn't really think about that. So look carefully at the images. Yeah, you should find something at vintagetoolshop.com. Ravenwolf says, "Yes, the Discord. Thanks at Crewville. We need that Discord server as well." I am looking into Discord server. Crewville. Hold on, where are you? Crewville. Put user in a timeout. Hide user. Add moderator. Ha! Okay. Crewville, you're a moderator now too. Drop me an email, stream@vintagetoolshop.com, and hell, I might even get you to set up the Discord if you know so much about it. Sorry, I like doing that. Yeah. Dave T said, roast duck. How about a double neck, fretless, and short scale bass build? I don't see many of those, do you? I would like to do a short scale bass build at some point. I don't think I've ever seen a double neck bass, i.e. with two different basses on it. It's always a guitar and a bass double neck, isn't it? Unless I'm much mistaken. Yeah, I don't know. Lego Man, sorry, yes, at some point I'll be doing a double neck build. The next double neck build has to be this Star Wars based build. I'm not sure if you can see that I designed many moons ago, just as lockdown was happening. So yeah, we'll have to check that out. YouTube moderator says, hey Ben, what would you recommend for a relatively cheap inlay material? I have inlaid everything from copper sheet taken out of an old boiler to aluminium, which is cheap and readily available, to veneer wood, to mother of pearl, which is obviously more expensive and difficult to get a hold of, and abalone, etc. Almost anything could be used as an inlay material. I would say look to brasses and aluminiums and things like that first, because it's both relatively easy to do and very easy to find. Okay. Now, Matthias Ekmer says, why is not every string the same length? Please answer. Because because the strings have not got the same thickness, it's a different tension, and essentially the compensated scale length has to change for that. It is a mathematical thing, and I am not a mathematical person, but very basically it's to do with the string tension and the thickness of the string, and yeah, you have to compensate the string length in order to get that note. They're also playing different notes, so it all goes together to create different things. If you look at a piano, for example, you see that the internals of a piano, or a grand piano, that's the word I was looking for. I am getting tired now. You will see that, but accentuated much more. Chris Squire apparently had a triple bass neck. Crikey. Luthier says, get him, Missy. Creeve will say, look, my name, it's Blue. Sorry, guys. Okay. Regarding double necks, this is from Bedroom Programmer, why is not every double neck guitar a 12 and a 6? No other ideas from makers, or do people actually want those? Apparently people actually want them, although if you look at various harp guitars, you've got a 12, you've got 6, you've got mandolas, you've got tenor mandolins I've seen before. I have seen, as I said, harp guitar type things added on. There are myriad things that could be done, but if somebody actually wants a double neck, it tends to be 6 and 12, or potentially bass and guitar, for that matter. Lee R says, what about a budget scrap build? MDF, plywood, old copper, brass fittings, etc., done with basic hand tools, lol. I would love to do a scrap wood challenge kind of build at some point, I really do. Another thing that could be amusing and could be interesting to watch is a challenge where, for example, I have £300 or £250 and I have to go to B&Q, which is the UK's big box store for, I don't know, I don't know the America enough. It's a big box store with hardware stuff in it, and I would have to build an entire guitar for 250 quid only from what I could buy at that shop. I would have to make all the hardware, the tuners, the wood, everything would be from that shop. I think it could be done. Maybe not quite with that budget, but it could be done. Alrighty, we are definitely coming up to the end. Okay, Matthias Bright Clay says, hi, this is Matthias here from Argentina. I want to ask you if you have any experience or advice in harp guitar field. I honestly do not. I've never built one. It's one of those things that, well, I'm going to have to do it at some point, aren't I? But I've got no constructive advice for you, I'm afraid. Frugal Fixer Spike says, hey, can I use your reaction to my fire in one of my contest videos? Absolutely. Yeah, feel free. Sorry, I was going to make a horrible joke about demonetizing your content and stealing your channel as a result of you using my things, but that's just so horrible and would never happen anyway. Ravenwolf Guitar says, I'm going to do a pallet wood build. All of you people talk about pallet wood builds. I've never seen pallet wood that's worth using. All of the pallet wood we get here is just really cheap, soft woods, basically. But anyway, it is what it is. Dave T says, I would love a double neck fretless and short scale bass right up my street. Could that be done as a Crimson Guitars course? Yes, it would probably end up being a custom course. I think you would probably have to do... You might get it done in 2 weeks. It would probably have to be done in 3, I suspect. But yes, that is the beautiful thing about the Crimson Guitars Luthiery courses is if you have a dream, we 100% will try and help you realize that. We'll cater the whole thing towards building that instrument, and I would love to see it, and for that matter, meet you. So there we go. Okay, I'm going to say thank you very, 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 very much for your support. I appreciate it very much, and well, it is the end of the evening. Most assuredly so. I have got to be up early working on shred, and I'm sure you guys have better things to be doing than looking at a strange, bald, tattooed guitar builder talking to a camera at the end of his garden. So please click like, subscribe if you haven't yet. Consider supporting our Patreon. Check out vintagetoolshop.com where we have a 10% off sale at the moment, and crimsonguitars.com where we have a plethora of fantastic things and toys and goodies that you need to have. And most importantly, go and make some dust. I mean, with a side of guitar, of course. And what I'm going to do now is wait 20 seconds or so before I click off, so it doesn't really do anything. Goodbye. Goodbye. Have a great bank holiday. Sleep well. This is weird. I should have said goodbye at this point. Oh, wait, I did.